Yo, what is good, Raider Nation? Shout out to you guys for pulling up. Thank you guys for spending this Tuesday with us. There's a lot to talk about. 53-man roster is officially out. We've got the final members of the Las Vegas Raiders for the 2023 season, and there's a lot to discuss. So let me just hop right on over into the chat real quick. Sean Scheffner Johnson is in the building. He says, salute Ray, salute Pharaoh. Shout out to you, Sean. I appreciate you. And look, if you guys are here, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. It lets everybody know where you're at tonight. And if you guys feel led to, man, go and share this to your social media pages. Let everybody know where you're tuning in tonight. The more people that show up, the better the show is for you and for us. So Sean Johnson, thank you for tuning in. You're always putting in work and dropping facts, so I really appreciate that. T. Severe's in the building. He says, not a lot of surprises. I had Bolton over Thomas, Webb and Long over Hall and Shelley. Had Farrell and Matthew Butler getting cut. Said Plant was a goner. Had Dorsett over Wilkerson, but both over Sims. That's a good take. We're going to hop right into it. We're going to get into it tonight once I welcome on Farrell. But first, DeMarcus Webb says, what's good, nation? What is going on, DeMarcus? It's good to have you here. Dodgers Everything says Raiders. Mark V Collection is in the building. Shout out to you. Daniel Kim, salute Ray, salute Farrell. Yaya is in the building. Salute Nation. Egalitarian. Haven't seen you in a minute, I feel like. What's going on, Egalitarian? Thank you for pulling up. Yaya says, Happy Kuntz made the team. Yep, we're going to hop right into it. Auntie Six says, I want to take a second and shout out the rookie draft class. The whole class made the team. That is real impressive. Also, this is the first year no undrafted free agents made the team. That's big. That's big, Auntie Six. But, man, we'll get into it. I don't want to leave my co-host waiting. You guys know who he is, man. By now, if you don't know, now you know. Pharaoh NFL. What's going on, man? You're muted.
Hey, you hear me now?
Yeah, now you're back.
I got to do an encore.
Yeah, there you go.
What's going on? We back, man. We back to talk about Raider football. Preseason's wrapped up. 53 man rosters are in. I see people in the chat mentioning how they weren't surprised. Shout out to the rookie draft class, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. What our thoughts about draft classes. But that being said, man, hey, I'm excited to talk Raider football, man. Salute to the chat. Appreciate everybody coming through.
Yeah, first thing, let's just jump straight into it, all right? Coming off the final week of the preseason, we finally got a debut of Tyree Wilson. Now, I thought this was big. It was good to finally see him get on the field. We didn't know, hey, is that going to be a week one thing? Is that going to be, into the regular season until we get to go out there and see Tyree? And look, everybody who's been following us faithfully, when we talked about, we kind of broke down the pros and cons of Tyree Wilson post-draft. We talked about pros and cons. And I think both of those showed up. If you go back and you listen to that video, both of the things that we talked about, the speed to power, his power was evident in the game. And that's where he's going to make his money, at least his rookie year in the NFL. His bull rush is just second to none. And especially when his hands are in the right place, you really start to see why the Raiders went out and took Tyree Wilson with the 7th overall pick. But also a lot of the things that we also talked about. Finishing tackles on the bull rush that should have been a sack. He threw an NFL tackle into the dirt, and the best part about that it was the guy just kind of laid there face down.
Take that out on my channel, by the way.
yeah, go over to Pharaoh NFL and check out that clip. That was pretty funny, actually. But no, man, some of the inconsistencies of as finishing. He ran and hustled to the ball. I thought there was some angles he could have took a little bit better. He showed up in the run game, but he also showed up in the pass game, which is something that you'd like to see. It was his first NFL action. He only played a couple series. So overall, it was a positive out of Tyree Wilson for me.
Yeah. I mean, right off the bat, you see the raw potential. You've seen how he threw that offensive tackle to the ground. But obviously, you also seen that it's been a while since he played football. He's missed most of training camp. He hasn't played since college season last year when he got hurt. So it's been a while. You could see the rust. But all that can be all corrected with coaching and just being able to play over and over again as far as with the team and the scheme. Hey, and the great thing about it, it's not like we're gonna ask him to do a lot to begin with. Anyways, I think they're gonna slowly bring him along. They know he hasn't played in a while, so they probably don't want to re-injure or re-hurt him. So they're gonna slowly put him back into football shape. But man, you could see the potential in Tyree Wilson, and you could see the excitement in Raider Nation, the way they responded, and like I said, I posted a video of him just throwing I think was it Josh Ball, O-tackle? It doesn't matter. You throwing an offensive line 300-pound man to the ground like he's a rag doll. That's impressive. But yeah, man, I'm definitely excited about Tyree Wilson, but I think it's just going to take a little bit. And I think he's just early on. I think he's just going to play, a limited amount of snaps with Chandler Jones and Max Crosby, and then obviously some of the players we're going to get into tonight.
Yeah, and something that I was looking for when I seen he finally took the field, because he didn't go out there right away, and I was like, I wonder when he's going to start getting reps. And then he actually came into the game, and at first I was like, I was a little bit concerned, if I'm not going to lie, because like typically you take somebody at the 7th overall pick, you want it to be obvious that he is the best player on the field at that point.
Yeah.
After he got that bull rush with the play that we're actually talking about when he leaves the tackle laying face down, after that, I would say everything started to shift and he started to look like the best player defensively out on the field. Like when you just watch this, when you break down the snaps based off of film, outside of Will Greer, I don't know what was in Will Greer.
He only played like 12 snaps, but you could see
after he got that initial like bull rush and got into the backfield, he still looked like he kind of looked sounds kind of bad, but he's the big guy out on the field, that he's always been the big guy on the team. He's always been bigger, stronger than everybody.
Right.
And now he's out there. And what I'm hoping is he has all the raw talent. He has all the power. He has, and it looks like he's developed his hand use, which is nice. That looks like Max Crosby's kind of got a hold of him.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to touch on that for a second, but I want to see his football IQ raise. Right. I want him to understand where he is in the pocket. I want to see him to be able to, okay, I can slow down here. I need to grab the quarterback, get the tackle. Same thing with the running back behind the line of scrimmage. I want to see him get his hands on guys, finish the play and get him to the ground, and not just be one of those flash players. So for me personally, I just want to see Tyree Wilson's IQ raised just a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's just going to take time. Like I wasn't looking at the game like, oh my God, the Raiders got a bust. He's making mistakes. Nah, like it's still early. He hasn't played. Just like we were giving, Jimmy G time when he was throwing interceptions in training camp. We understood like, hey, he hasn't played football in a while. He needs to get into the rhythm of playing with the NFL speed of the defense and playing in a new system. Same thing goes for a young defender, a rookie, and Tyree Wilson. So I'm not concerned about Tyree Wilson. I think, man, like you could see like I said, raw potential. You see raw potential, but as time goes on, we're going to see, hopefully we see production.
Yeah. And T. Severe says he has all the physical tools to be special. He just outside of his very first play, which can be excused, his get off looked improved, which I was concerned with when we draft him.
We remember that, T. Severe. We remember that.
We do remember that, T. Severe. And also look, that when he was over at Texas Tech, they asked him to do a lot. So there was a lot of him dropping back in coverage. There was a lot of him being disciplined on the back end of the defense of holding a run lane. So I agree with you. There was times his get off looked terrible, but I think at the NFL level where things can kind of be simplified this season for him, you've got Chandler, you've got Max, those guys can kind of pin their ears back. But I think third down, notably, this is a known pass rush situation. The Raiders are going to put him in a position like you've seen in the preseason game to use that power, to use that bull rush, to collapse the pocket and hopefully help a guy like Max Crosby finally get. Max Crosby's going to jump up in sacks this year, especially if Tyree can be that productive against starters. Not even with a sack number total, but the pressures that he's able to get with his bull rush.
Yeah.
It's just going to improve this defensive line.
Yeah, man, I'm excited, man. But let's get into the 53-man roster, man. A lot.
Perfect.
Hey, there were some moves. Some surprising moves that happened today. I think one of them was probably Neil Farrell getting traded.
Yeah, that was interesting.
To the Kansas City Chiefs, man. That's you trading with the enemy, but then it also tells you like how much the Raiders really valued him. If you're going to trade him to a division opponent, having not even thinking twice that it's going to make them better, like nah, they just didn't really care. Which is surprising because he was drafted last year with Matthew Butler, who also was cut. So
you wanna zoom in on this 2023 Raiders roster?
Oh yeah, no doubt. Let me see 1 second.
But no, you make a good point. It's interesting that their first picks at the defensive tackle spot, both of them are gone.
Okay, so here's the visual. So we look at the quarterback room. Obviously, no surprises there. Maybe some people were questioning if Brian Hoyer should be on the roster, but obviously Raiders like his experience, and they want to bring in Aiden O'Connell slowly. Any surprises in the running back room?
Yeah, to me, man, I wanted to keep Damian Harris. I felt like
Or Williams?
or Damian Williams. Sorry, my fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of a returner.
Yeah.
No, but Williams, to me personally, and you can push back if you don't see it the same way, but he reminded me of like the best Josh Jacobs style backup that we had on the roster. Like
Mhm.
Zamir White was a very power gap, ISO, downhill, not making any type of vision or read, just downhill runner. Not necessarily like Josh, but I feel like when I watch Williams run, he has a bit of that vision. He has a little bit of burst to him. He's got some power to him. To me personally, it just felt like the perfect backup for a guy like Josh Jacobs. If it, say he were to go down,
Mhm.
I'm just not big on Zamir White. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it by any means. I don't.
Right.
They're holding on to him, so they obviously see something in him. But for me, for this season, I probably would have went another way. And also, Amir Abdullah and Brandon Bolden, special teams guy. Look, I get it. That's a core fundamental of how our coaching staff views this roster. But at the same time, it's like there's guys that we could put back there that's a little bit more dynamic.
No, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think they were gonna get rid of Zamir White like they got rid of Neil Farrell and Matthew Butler. Like Matthew Butler and Neil Farrell pretty much almost gave you nothing as far as production. They there went last year when our defense was struggling, we didn't when we seen them out there, they really didn't make too much plays. And hey, maybe the coaching staff didn't see a lot of improvement and they felt like they needed to part ways and get better players on the roster. But Zamir White, going back to Zamir White in the running back room, I think I understand he's not Josh Jacobs, but they feel like they could probably develop him. He was a 4th-round pick last year, so they're going to give him an opportunity. And he's a rookie, so he's not going to take too much cap space. It's not a matter of cap space, but I think it's just a matter of like they spent that draft pick on him, and they're willing to have him back up Josh Jacobs. And then you got Damian Williams, who's 31 years old. I understand what you're saying. He's similar to Josh Jacobs, but
how old is Amir Abdullah? How old is Brandon Bolden? Like for him, it wasn't age. For me,
I think Damian Williams was brought in to be a camp body, and if anything,
100%.
and if anything, if someone got a major injury, then a Damian Williams would make sense to make the team. But Amir Abdullah, he's been here since last year. They like him at that third down role, pass catching out the backfield. I don't know about picking up blitzes or anything like that, but the guy, he's a good receiving back. Brandon Bolden, that's just one of those coaches.
He's in the
Coaches, he's in the
graces.
coach's office, favorite player. You know what I mean? It's just one of those, like, he was one of those pickups early on with Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler. You just don't get it, but they like maybe it's a culture fit. That's probably what it is. We all know Jakob Johnson, fullback. Raiders are one of the only teams that have a fullback on the roster, so it makes sense for him to be on here. And he's a pretty good blocker at fullback. He's not a bad player at that position, but it's kind of rare to see a fullback make the team like that. But we're one of those teams. But
I was today years old when I found out Daniel Carlson had a brother in the NFL. What?
Who said that? He said
Dodgers everything. Says Daniel Carlson has a brother in the NFL.
And okay, I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that either.
I didn't know that. Like
Kevin Lurker says Farrell called Matthew Butler and Farrell.
Yeah, I did. So did T Severe too. Me and him called it at the same time. I called it before him. You know what I mean? I want y'all to take note of that. But
I only got it half right. I said Matthew Butler.
Yeah. Go. You know what? Since perfect timing, Kevin. Like he's talking about our last show where we pretty much were talking about players that were on the roster bubble, and surprise cuts. Some we got right, some we got wrong. I think I had Drake Thomas as a guy in a bubble. I know Ray, he predicted him to be cut. Latane Moody was a guy that I had him on a bubble. Ray, I think predicted he was going to get cut as well. When I did the surprise cut segment, I went for the all the way left. You know what I mean? So I put the Matthew Kuntz or Malcolm Kuntz. I put the Amik Robinson, who actually made the team. So we'll get a chance to look at that room. But yeah, there were a few players that we kind of we hit on, and some players I was surprised that made a team, and we'll get into it in a second. Let me just pull up the position groups on the screen. Hold on 1 second. So we got the wide receiver room.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Before we do that, man, shout out to SVT. hit the like button, please, guys. It helps us more than you know. So it shoots us up the algorithm. The YouTube algorithm is real, and it's free, guys. It's the easiest way to support us. And if you guys appreciate Raiders content and the consistency, please go over there and do that for us. Thank you, SVT, for reminding the chat. But yeah, wide receiver room. Let's hop into it.
Yeah, so wide receiver room, we got Devontae Adams, DeAndre Carter, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, Trey Tucker, Christian Wilkerson. We are not surprised by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just this last spot. We were kind of, are they going to get us? Are they going to have a 6th receiver? And if they do, who is it going to be? And to be honest with you, I'm not super surprised. Like, I'm not like he played in the system. He's familiar with the Patriots system. He balled out in preseason, and Keon Cole and Philip Dorsett and Sims were the odd men out. So I'm not really surprised.
Yeah, I thought Philip Dorsett really lost his opportunity when DeAndre Carter came onto the scene. DeAndre Carter just kind of solidified that punt return, kick returner spot. And I just think at this point in his career, he just offers a little bit more lateral movement. He still has vertical speed, Philip Dorsett does. I'm not saying he looks slow out there by any means, but I just think DeAndre Carter, he took advantage of an opportunity. And when you can thrive on special teams like that, then that's how he's going to edge out a guy like Philip Dorsett. Trey Tucker also emerging, but no, I thought Christian Wilkerson was a little bit of a surprise to me. I thought he did fantastic in the preseason. But we kind of seen that in times past too, right? Like remember like DeMarcus Robinson and guys like that. I just thought that this roster might have been a little bit too deep, and they might have used that extra roster spot on the defensive side of the football, or maybe at one of the guard or tackle positions. But I thought it was interesting that Christian Wilkerson made it, and props to him. That just goes to show you if you earn it in preseason, the coaching staff is going to keep you around.
Yeah, facts. But at the end of the day, this is probably our strongest position group on the team. So it wasn't a matter of who was going to make. Like we were like wondering like who's going to make the receiver room. Like it's literally who was going to win out on that 5th, 6th spot in that room. So hey, the winner is Christian Wilkerson, man. He did his thing, especially last game. He finished strong. 10 catches, 122 yards. And I think a lot of it is volume too, because they were force feeding him. Like they weren't really going with anybody else.
He just looked like the best. He was the best at the depth, though. Obviously, it was pretty clear, and he had the trust with the quarterbacks too.
Yeah. But now we move on to the tight end room. No surprises here.
Right,
Austin Hooper. I think did you have Austin Hooper as a surprise?
Yeah, obviously I was trying to go out on a limb and predict that one that was going to be the big surprise.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I had mine too. I had a couple of surprise cuts that are still on the roster, but no, to me, hey, this is another good group. To me, in my opinion, you got young, promising talent. Michael Mayer, hopefully he takes hold of that starting role. I think right now they're going to ease him in. I think the Raiders love Jesper Horsted. They like him as a block. I think he's probably the best blocker.
That's what was interesting was Cole Fotheringham. Like if that guy clears waivers, we've got to find a way to get him on the practice squad, because Cole Fotheringham, to me, he was like the Christian Wilkerson. I feel like he really earned a way onto this roster. So that was a little bit surprising to me, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah, Cole Fotheringham, he did play well that first preseason game. Like you saw him getting open, making nice catches, getting separation. But I think at the end of the day, like when you're an undrafted free agent, it's hard to make the roster. It's an uphill battle. And to be honest with you, one of the things I noticed is no undrafted free agent made the team. I don't think not one. So that tells you how it's an uphill battle. Like at the end of the day, they're going to be going against players, established veterans, players that, they got scholarship, meaning like they were drafted. Like, and we're going to go into some of the position groups, and you're going to be like, oh, why didn't this guy make it? But I think Cole Fotheringham, if he's another practice squad candidate, hopefully he makes the waivers, and then we can bring him back. But yeah, man, let's get into it, man. Let's get it rolling. Offensive line, they have 8 with Jermaine Illuminor, Justin Herron, Andre James, Colton Miller, Jordan Meredith. Surprise. Thayer Mumford Jr., Dylan Parham, and Greg Van Roten.
Yeah.
Any surprises?
Yeah, I want to give myself a little bit of flowers here, because I had us releasing Natay Moody, but I had a guy that I've been talking about that nobody talks about, but it's Jordan Meredith. And Jordan Meredith was a backup guy last year, and now he's finally earned a spot on the 53-man roster, somebody who I just think plays good football. He goes in there.
Me personally, I was surprised. I was surprised because I thought they were. This is possibly where we could probably get a young guard like I know McClendon Curtis. Maybe he can clear waivers and he might be a practice squad guy. But hey, the Raiders, they opted for experience, guys that they trust. That they already been developing. Alex Bars, that was one of my surprise cuts. And obviously the Raiders cut him, and I think we can say Greg Van Roten is going to be the starting right guard for the Raiders now.
Yeah, the Alex Bars was a little interesting because they just outright released him. I thought
a starter going into training camp too.
Yeah, so that kind of tells you. But one, I just genuinely think, like, when I watch, I think people weren't talking about Jordan Meredith because he's not just ragdolling people out there, but he's just in his spot, doing his job, holding up in pass pro. He really excels in pass pro, which is something that they're obviously going to want to do with Jimmy Garoppolo behind center. So yeah, man, Alex Bars, veteran, Van Roten kind of kicked him out the door a little bit there.
Yeah,
but
all the way out the door.
Yeah, Kevin Lurker brought it up. I've got Dalton Wagner on IR, so the Raiders are definitely going to take this guy, develop him. They like what they see. They don't want any other team to get their hands on him. Boom, designate him to IR, hold on to him for another year.
Yeah.
And next year, say Jermaine Illuminor goes off to sign in free agency. You have a right tackle who knows the system, who's going to come in and try to compete for a spot. So loved what I seen from Dalton Wagner. Love the move to put him into IR. You don't risk losing him. You guarantee him for next season. He gets another year of development. Awesome move by the Raiders.
Yeah, definitely a strategic move. I think last show I said he was going to be on the bubble. He needed to finish strong with that last preseason game to possibly make the team. But obviously the Raiders liked him enough where they didn't want to have him on the roster just yet. But obviously they put him on IR. We see it all the time. Players that teams like, but they don't have room for them on the roster, but they still want to keep him. So he's definitely a guy that, to look out in the future for sure.
Daniel Kim says, I'm actually excited to see who they pick and how they fill out the practice squad. McDaniels said that the practice squad is an extension of their official 53 by the way they use guys and stash guys. And yeah, you're referencing also Bussin' with the Boys podcast, which if you guys haven't, we're going to play some audio from that later. But if you haven't watched the video in its entirety, they did a sit down with Josh McDaniels. I thought it was a great interview. We're going to kind of peel back a few layers of that here in a little bit. But no, Daniel, I thought it was remarkable. So 53, and I believe you get 15 to 17 guys. 16 to 17 guys that you get to put on the practice squad. So he broke it down of how you have a 90-man roster, but really you're not losing almost half anymore. You know what I mean? You're keeping almost 70 guys on your roster. So you're really cutting 20. So no, man, I like that. I'm excited to see who it is that's going to actually make the practice squad. We released a few good players, and if there's a need around the NFL, those guys will get picked up. We're 7th in the waiver order, so I'm kind of excited to see how those first 6 picks go. But yeah, man, I'm excited to see how our practice squad decides to fill out.
Yeah, so that finishes out the O linemen. So the next group that we're going to get into is defensive line. Obviously, you see it on the screen. We have Adam Butler, Max Crosby, Nesta Jade Silvera, John Jenkins, Chandler Jones, Malcolm Kuntz, Bilal Nichols, Jerry Tillery, Byron Young, Tyree Wilson. Beginning show, we talked about some of the surprise cuts with Matthew Butler and Neil Farrell. What are your thoughts, man? About them not being on the roster anymore?
It doesn't necessarily okay. I thought they would have kept a guy like Neil Farrell over Nesta Jade, but I think that they value the nasty and the grit that Nesta Jade has. He has what the other two didn't have, and that was just the ability to create a little bit more disruption on the interior. They see the upside in Nesta Jade. They see the attitude that he brings, the passion that he has for football. I think that's contagious for this coaching staff. So I think the way and the style that Nesta plays and practices is what edged him out over the 2 previous draft picks. And hey, shout out to Nesta Jade because he just outworked 2 guys who had a year of NFL experience and was drafted before he was ever taken. So, so he came in here and worked. But overall, man, when I look at this defensive line, when you have it pulled up and you listed off all the names, I like the depth. I like the different, diverse tools that you have to work with if these guys are healthy.
Yeah.
I liked what Adam Butler brought. I liked what John Jenkins brought as two savvy veterans in the middle. Bilal Nichols, and those guys aren't even the starters. They're the depth pieces to the starters. So Bilal Nichols is healthy. I'm curious to see if he can offer pass rush. Jerry Tillery, he was all right with the limited snaps that he was seen in preseason. But Byron Young is one of those guys I've got circled as under the radar. I don't know about. I'm intrigued to watch Byron Young get some reps this year.
So it's kind of interesting. You got Matthew Butler last year was a 5th-round pick. Neil Farrell was a 4th-round pick. And then going back to the running back room, we didn't touch on this, but Britton Brown, we didn't see him in that room because he was put on IR. So technically, there's only 3 active players from that 2022 draft.
Yep.
And just going back to what you were talking about earlier, and to going back to that running back room, Zamir Wright was one of the 3 picks that's active, and you're not a huge fan,
right?
It's still early, but what do you think about that draft, man? Like,
well, here, let's be honest. They came in late
mm-hmm.
as a coaching staff.
Yeah.
You still have scouts from the previous regime.
Yep.
Okay. So they already had all their information in. You're trying to get a jump start on free agency. The Raiders were getting Devontae Adams and making all the moves that they went out and made. Let's be honest, you don't have your footing as an organization. You don't have your footing as a front office. Your guys as a scouting department is not in the building. You're not necessarily getting 100% the guys that you're looking to evaluate. So that draft, man, you can't put a ton of stock into their first draft. And I've been saying it this all offseason. Judge them based off of this draft moving forward. They've got all their scouts in there. They've got all the guys that are looking at prospects from UDFAs to late round draft picks. And from the looks of it, every single draft pick has made this roster. And not only that, but if you look in the preseason games, these guys made an impact. Regardless of where they were drafted at, these guys have made an impact, and they've turned heads in joint practices and in training camp. So I like the initial draft. This is the year 1 draft for me personally. But yeah, man, that's kind of how I feel about that situation.
And to be honest with you, just to be fair, like Ziegler, his first pick was in like the third round.
Yep.
So it's really hard. Like, obviously they're going to make their big board, but like it's different to start in the 3rd round than starting in the 1st round. And you could really like be strategic about what players you can get and who you feel like is going to drop down and how to move around, in that draft. But yeah, I think it was tough that first year. You made some good points about them starting late as a coaching staff. They literally got rid of a lot of scouts from the previous regime. So I think this year, you probably can judge them a little bit better because now they had like a full repertoire. Like they had a full room of scouts and all the types of people that they needed in their disposal to pretty much bring in the right players. But yeah, man, I like the defensive line, man. I like the defensive line room. Adam Butler, Max Crosby. It was interesting. Max Crosby, like early on, and like when a great player literally is like tune your horn, man. He's talking about Nesta J. Silvera, and I know ONT6 is in the chat. He asked us a question last show, or was it the show before, about Nesta Jade and his chances of making the roster. Man, I didn't think it. I thought he was probably going to be a practice squad guy. I thought that the Raiders weren't going to move on from one of the D tackles last year, but they did. That says a lot. But they've pretty much moved on. They like another younger player better. And man, at the end of the day, when you got Max Crosby, Chandler Jones, Tyree Wilson, and you got some young talent, Byron Young, it kind of makes those guys expendable at the end of the day.
Yeah, and transitioning over into a room that I'm worried about. I'm worried about these guys, the linebackers. So we've got Curtis Bolton, who obviously edged out Drake Thomas. Kind of called that on the last show on my prediction. Amari Burney made the roster. He's flashed this preseason. I like what he showed in the San Francisco game. Divine Diablo, obviously he was making the roster. Luke Masterson, year 2 linebacker in the system, was going to make the roster. Then the captain of the defense, as far as the linebacker core goes, Robert Spillane. It's just, man, this room needs help. And I'm going to just be honest with you. This room needs help. There needs to be a deep dive around the National Football League we can bring in to upgrade this room, because let's be honest, these teams like the Bills, these teams like the Chiefs, you play a tight end like George Kittle, like these teams are going to cause problems over the middle of the field. So yeah, to me personally, Pharaoh, and I want to get your opinion on the linebacker room, but I'm just not quite there yet.
Yeah, it's a lot of what ifs. It's a lot of what ifs. Obviously, Divine Diablo and Robert Spillane's leading that linebacker room, but Curtis Bolton, special teams guy, Amari Burney, 6th-round guy, who had some flashes in preseason, but he's still a young guy, unproven. We don't know what we can get from him. Luke Masterson, I'm not sure. They definitely, I feel like that's definitely a spot that they're going to have to be pay attention to in the waiver room. I know you mentioned earlier in the show, you said they're 7th in that waiver spot. So hopefully they can pick up somebody. It's still 7th, it's still going to be 6, teams in front of you, but still like, hey, there's a chance where you can get a good player, and hopefully it's a linebacker for us, because this room definitely needs, I think, another veteran to this room.
Yeah, no, I agree. And look, what really concerns me is if historically, let's be honest, Divine Diablo struggles with injuries. So if Divine Diablo goes down and now you could plug in a second year Luke Masterson, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. There's no NFL team that is worried about this linebacker room. I mean, when it comes to coming downhill in the run defense, I think Robert Spillane is gonna shine. Guy like Curtis Bolton plays with passion and energy. He's a bit undersized for our linebacker room.
Yeah.
Look, guys, as soon as injuries start popping up in this linebacker room, it could get ugly really quick for this Raiders defense. So
yeah. And like we mentioned earlier, like there like no undrafted free agents made the roster, and one of those undrafted free agents that didn't make the roster was linebacker Drake Thomas. That was a guy that like a lot of people kind of looked at, was like, hey, this is he was making plays in the preseason. He played well, but at the end of the day, like it was an uphill battle for him, and hopefully he can clear waivers and make because there's a lot to like. He made some plays out there, but at the end of the day, like it's almost like the Raiders they're opting for experience, guys that they know. And if you notice, got scholarship guys like Amari Burney was just drafted. There's no way they're gonna cut him. Curtis Bolton is a guy that coaching staff likes, special teams guy. He's made some improvements. Definitely the Raiders would like him. And obviously Luke Masterson also is another guy that the coaching staff's invested in. So, and they like him. So Drake Thomas, hopefully he drops to that practice squad and we can pick him up.
Raider Way says Jalen Smith at linebacker. And look, I'm a Fort Wayne guy. That's where Jalen is from. I've run into Jalen in public. I've got family that works with his grandma. Like I've had conversations with these guys. So like, I don't say it disrespectfully, but he's just not the player. After that significant knee injury, he's just not been able to stick on a roster. There's better talent right now than Jalen Smith at the linebacker position. I was going to get into it in other news, but since we're kind of asking who could be in that linebacker room, the Panthers have released Pro Bowl linebacker Deion Jones. This is somebody who I wouldn't mind seeing in the silver and black, just to kind of kick tires on him, get him caught up to the system. It reminds me of when we kind of brought in Rogers Cromartie and like the true fonts, like the experienced veterans that we've had in past join the silver and black. This just reminds me of Deion Jones a little bit. Sideline to sideline speed guy, kind of fits with what Patrick Graham likes to do. So I would just be curious to see if Deion Jones could kind of make that roster. T. Severe says the Raiders have aims on Diablo and Burney being Warner and Greenlaw. Very some familiar size, traits, and skill sets. Warner played like a big safety at BYU. I would say that sounds good, T. Severe, but I would just say that at this point, at least for Divine Diablo, I won't speak on Amari Burney, but Divine Diablo is no Fred Warner by any means. Like, plays good downhill, decent run defense, pass coverage is very poor. So if that is their vision, then me personally, I think that their vision's pretty far off.
Yeah, man, it's a lot of what if in that linebacker room, but we'll see how it shakes out, man. There's still some guys that can possibly get picked up. I know you mentioned a guy, and we'll talk about him a little bit more in a minute. But let's go to the next room, man, cornerback room, and we got Jacoyan Bennett, Brandon Facyson, Nate Hobbs, David Long Jr., Marcus Peters, Amik Robinson finds a way. He was a surprise cut for me. I thought this was he was on his last leg. You know what I mean? Like I thought the Raiders, they put they had a lot of players in that position group, and I thought they were going to go a different direction, especially watching a little bit of preseason. And I thought he was giving up a little plays, but this coaching staff likes Amik. He's a fighter. He's tough, and he found a way to make the roster. I'm just gonna say, David Long Jr. Were you surprised that he made it?
That is a bit surprising to me, to be honest with you.
And Faison too.
And Faison, and you haven't seen him at all. So, what is the extent of that injury? I don't know. Obviously, it's not anything significant. It's something probably short term IR. Obviously, he was showing them they value him significantly if he was able to stick around on the roster. So,
hey, what a difference a year makes, because that was a guy that they didn't bring back from that 2021 season. They let him go. They let him walk. And then a year later, after he spent the time with the Colts, he comes back. They give him a 2-year contract, which they didn't guarantee a lot of money. So they can easily let go of Faison if they wanted to. But he barely played training camp. And they cut Sam Webb, a few guys, Tyler Hall, Duke Shelley.
Yeah,
I think that was another guy. Were you surprised Duke Shelley got cut?
I was high on him when they got him in free agency. He was just one of those guys, man coverage wise, that I thought was going to excel in this scheme, and it just didn't work out. So I was rooting for Duke, but we talked about it last show, right? Going into the last preseason game, it was him and Amik battling for that spot. Same size, same stature, same type of player. I think they brought Duke in to kind of push Amik, and Amik, obviously based off the coaching staff and maybe his practice habits, maybe Amik just showed just a little bit more. But no, overall, man, I think the Meek Robinson one, kudos to Amik for making the roster. Brandon Faison was a bit, to me, I just think it goes back to my previous projection was when I looked at the guys they brought in. Brandon Faison was historically known as a cover 3 Gus Bradley guy. If you guys remember, we brought him in with Gus Bradley. He was a plug and play from the Chargers and excelled, and that's how he found his home with the Raiders. Yeah. Marcus Peters has played a ton of zone coverage in his time. He's also getting older, so putting him in press man situations at all times isn't necessarily ideal. Nate Hobbs, another guy who was drafted into the cover 3 scheme and thrived. That's really how he made his money, right? That's how he made his popularity and success with the Raiders defense, was playing zone coverage. So
at the slot
corner spot. So they're still going to play at a significant amount of man coverage in the grand scheme of how much the NFL defenses actually play man coverage now in 2023. So it doesn't necessarily mean 70% of the reps are going to be man coverage. But hey, if it's around that 38 to 40% mark, they're still going to be in the upper echelon of the league playing man. But we're going to see a drastic swing and more disguised coverages, I think.
Yeah. No, we'll see how it shakes out. It's not a bad room. I think there's some potential there. Hey, we like what we've been hearing about Jacory Bennett. We haven't seen too much of him in preseason. Not a lot of, they didn't really test him too much. Raiders kind of, kept him out of there, especially when they kind of felt like he's probably going to be I think he's starting, right? He's starting on the other side of Marcus Peters, right?
Jacory
Bennett. Is it officially he's going to start? I think
so. I mean, official, no. I would say if Brandon Faison is healthy, it would probably be Brandon Faison. Just based off of the experience. But I to be honest with you, Jacory Bennett has so much hype and so much buzz around him, then it doesn't surprise me if they go out there year one and just plug him on the outside.
Yeah, man. But we like the room, man. We glad that Amik Robinson. Hey, my bad, Amik, you watching this, man? Hey, man. I thought wrong. Man. Amik, you are back. You held it down for another year. Hopefully, you have a big year this year. But yeah, Amik Robinson definitely was not a surprise cut. He made the team.
New numbers for Jacory Bennett. He's number 0, which is kind of cool.
Number 0.
Chris Smith is 29.
Yeah, Chris Smith is 29.
And Trey Tucker's 14.
That's a weird number.
That's a bit weird.
Jacory Bennett getting 0 too is kind of weird, but I guess,
I could see him with that one, though.
You can see him with that?
Yeah, it's better than 14. 14's a bit ugly.
I wonder what the story with that 0 number is. Like, you're not getting nothing on me or something like that. Like, what?
I don't know. There's probably something behind it.
There's a story behind it.
Yeah, but it's different, right? Because didn't they just pass that this year? Was that you're allowed to wear 0? I think that was like this season.
This season, they're always changing the rules on numbers. Before, like, only certain position groups used to wear numbers. Now it's like,
well, yeah, I think this is the first year of 0 being a number. So there's a few players.
Hey, there should be a quarterback wearing like number 55. Like, just do it. Like, just be different. I know it's nasty, but at the end of the day, I feel like Imagine if you're like
72.
imagine if you're the best player in the league or you're one of the best players, you'll stand out even more. It's not even about the numbers. It's just like, wow, how much you stand out as a player, because everybody will know like you're the number 72 that played quarterback, and no one's ever done that. But everybody's kind of going after the classic numbers. I feel like growing up, like the classic numbers were number 80, 81. You like if a receiver getting in the 80s. But I think that's probably due to rules and stuff like that. But it is what it is. But you mentioned a player that got a new number, Chris Smith, number 29. And he's one of the safeties that made the team. 5th-round draft pick, Marcus Epps, Trayvon Moehrig, Isaiah Pola-Mao, and Roderick Teamer round out the safety group. I thought there was going to be a cut here. Not gonna lie, I didn't think they were gonna go with 5 safeties, but hey, at the end of the day, the Raiders kind of went with we're gonna keep the best players on the team. So, and they felt
this might be a reflection of the linebacker room too, to be honest with you. But with playing a bunch of the big nickel coverages, like you know what I mean. So
yeah,
there's probably gonna be two linebackers on the field, so it'll be a 4-2-5 concept.
Yeah.
And so you're going to see a lot of 3 safety sets. So obviously Epps and Merrick are going to be on the back end. And then there's probably going to be a rotation mix of Isaiah and Chris Smith. And then Roderick is obviously a special teams ace.
Isaiah Pola-Mao, he's a big dude. He's a big dude. He's like 6'4", 215 at least, So you could see him in that versatile role where they bring him from safety down there to be that little linebacker. I don't know.
T. Severe says Trey Tucker predicting his number of drops.
Oh, T Severe, man. Hey, man. T Severe already just
shots fired.
Hey, man, shots fired, man. But behind friendly fire too, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
Friendly fire, man. It's too early in the season to talk like that, man. It's too early in the season, but we get it. No, he definitely needs to clean up the drops though, man, because the thing is, I don't think that was an issue for him in college too. I don't think drops was an issue for him in college, but preseason we seen him drop passes left and right. And man, we're going to get into. We didn't really talk too much about the quarterback room, but do you want to get into the next topic?
Yeah, so we're going to transition you guys over into the strength and weaknesses of the roster. I'll start with the weaknesses, and you can kind of touch on the strength. I think it's clear and evident it's the linebacker room. I don't have to spend too much time on this. We kind of extensively went over it when we talked about the linebackers. There needs to be somebody there. Robert Spillane has been everything you've been asking for. Divine Diablo, health and issues. Luke Masterson, nobody's really afraid of that. Curtis Bolton plays with passion, but he's historically a special teams guy. Mari Burney, 6th-round pick, I believe, coming into this situation. He's got a lot to learn. He's a rookie in the NFL. Can't expect anything crazy out of him his rookie year. Obviously, if he proves us wrong, I'm here for it. But no, man, I just think that this is a room that needs a dynamic playmaker, whether you make a trade or you claim a veteran free agent off the market. I just think this room needs addressed.
Okay. Yeah. And then obviously, like, we'll just go up here. Look, this is one of the strengths on the team, defensive line. I think anytime you got Max Crosby, Chandler Jones, and then you got Tyree Wilson and, hopefully promising young players like Byron Young and Malcolm Koos had a really strong training camp. I think I like this. I think you can safely say this is probably one of the best position groups on the team. And I would say probably be the X factor this year would be that D-line group. If we can get pressure, on defense, I think that's going to be a huge help. That can be a sign of some type of improvement on defense. Because if we can't get to the quarterback, I'm not pretty confident in this room right here. I don't know if you want. I don't know if you want a quarterback all day to be going against a rookie corner and Marcus Peters, who at this stage of his career, I'm not sure if you want him to be covering a guy all day back there.
No, I agree. It's a great point because they're completely banking on this front to get after it. You know what I mean? They're putting so much trust in those guys up front that they're going to generate a pass rush that maybe those guys on the back end actually look decent. So we'll see, man. We'll see. I would agree with you. The defensive line does look like a strength. I would also probably say the wide receiver room.
Yeah. That's
a given.
Yeah, that's a given. You know what I mean? Like this is pretty obvious. And you know what? I like our quarterback room. I actually like our quarterback room. If you just look at it as a whole, like you got Jimmy G, an experienced veteran starter. He fits in the system. We talking about him time and time again. Like he's a perfect fit with Josh McDaniels. He's a solid quarterback. And then, you got an experienced Brian Hoyer. At this stage of career, he's not the same quarterback.
Next.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm gonna give you one.
Yeah, next. I would say Aiden O'Connell makes me feel great coming out of the preseason if something were to happen to Jimmy G. If they go to Brian Hoyer, I'm probably going to lose my mind.
I like the quarterback room because now we're going into the season where we're like, hey, because at first what was the thing that we talked about Jimmy G? The biggest concern that we had with him was the fact that he can't stay healthy. So now, if something were to happen, you kind of feel comfortable throwing Aiden O'Connell out there.
Yeah.
And see what you got from there and let him develop. And if he's not the guy, now you go into 2024 draft full of quarterbacks. You know what I mean?
I guess the question comes down to like, who would you rather lose with? Would you rather the Raiders go out there with Brian Hoyer, or would you rather Aiden O'Connell get a shot?
Yeah, Aiden O'Connell should be a number 2 quarterback, like hands down.
Yeah, I think
Brian Hoyer should be like the emergency quarterback, holding a clipboard and serving drinks to Jimmy G.
Hoyer is garbage. He's so bad.
Yeah.
OJ Raider says bring in Zappy to compete with Aiden O'Connell. Yeah, he's also a player that's circled on my waiver list. The Patriots moved on from Zappy, obviously. Has history in that offense, could come in, younger guy. But I don't know. I don't know if they do that with the emergence of Aiden O'Connell.
Since we're looking at it right here on the screen, the running back room, if Josh Jacobs gets hurt, I'm not as confident.
That's what I was trying to say.
I'm not as confident.
That's what I was trying to say.
I'm not as confident. I'm not gonna lie, because Zamir White, we don't know what he can do as a starter, and the way he's ran the ball, oh man, it's gonna be tough. But what's gonna help him is if our passing offense is, basically hitting all cylinders with, obviously Devontae Adams, Kobe Myers, all these passing options, and Jimmy G is like playing, lights out, then it's going to ease up a little bit. I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, if Josh Jacobs is not there and Zamir White, it's going to ease up a little bit. But man, hopefully Josh Jacobs, hopefully he stays healthy. Knock on wood. I don't want to put nothing in the universe, but yeah, I get you. I get you, right. I mean,
like Damian Williams, to me, like if you told me he was I would have felt better about the running back by committee approach if Williams was still on the roster. Just because, like I said, I think he gives you the vision, power. He's a good Josh Jacobs backup. Zamir White, you guys know how I feel about him. Not very sold.
Yeah.
But, and Amir Abdullah, whatever.
Would you try to bring him back as a practice squad guy?
If you could do it, yeah.
100%. Does it make sense to have like him as a running back, as a practice squad guy, and especially when there's other positions where, strategically speaking, like how would you go about that? Like, it's tough. It's a tough.
So
call.
You're allowed to put veterans on the practice squad.
Yeah.
At his age, I'm sure people aren't just sprinting up to the podium to go out and get Williams. Look, I think that this is an offensive scheme that helps these guys thrive and look better than maybe what they would in another scheme. So they simplify things up front. Long story short, I would like to see Williams get put on the practice squad just in case Josh goes down. I don't have faith that Brandon's going to be a solid, number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have faith that Zamir is quite there yet. I know everybody's going to be quick to say that Zamir is the number 2 guy. He's earned it, or whatever it is you want to say. He just doesn't have it when you're looking at the running back spot. When you're looking at if a player has it, I just don't see it from Zamir.
Yeah.
Like I said, a good ISO player, a good, right between the tackles, not making any type of mental decisions on cutback lanes or anything like that. It's just straight downhill runner. That's all he is. So yeah, dude, this room, it could get scary quickly as well too if Josh Jacobs goes down.
Yeah. But yeah, man, let's hit up the chat real quick. Let's see what their thoughts and what they got on the roster.
OJ Raider says, let's be real. If Jimmy G goes down, I'm not comfortable with throwing in a rookie. Stop it. Look, to be honest with you, I'm not throwing in Brian Hoyer, and I don't care how you feel, respectfully. Like, Brian Hoyer can hold Aiden O'Connell's clipboard and call plays.
What's the point? OJ Raider, what's the point of putting Brian Hoyer out there? Like, I don't see.
It's a guaranteed loss.
Yeah, but I just don't see the value. Like, there's no there's zero. There's nothing. Now, if Brian Hoyer was like one of the best backups in the league, good quarterback, and we just so happen to have him as a backup, yes, there is value because he'll give you the best chance to win. But he's not even that.
No, he's not good. You don't want him there. I'm telling you, he's going to hold on to the football. He's going to make bad decisions. He's going to throw interceptions, and you're going to lose games that Aiden O'Connell could at least give you a chance. So, yeah, to me, it's not even close, to be honest with you.
Glenn has a prediction.
Glenn has a prediction. Where at?
It's the next one. It's the next one right below that.
Prediction: Carlson will hit 70 yards. Hey, that 62-yarder and with room, that was nasty. But hey,
man,
he's the best. It's the best special teams core in the NFL. So
best kicker. You can make he best kicker in the league. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people would like to say the guy out in Baltimore, I think Tucker. But I'll take Carlson, man. Carlson is Mr. Consistent. Mr. Consistent. I think this year he'll show everybody that he's the best.
OJ says the kid shined in practice, man. Promising, sure, but to say I'm comfortable with him starting, ain't it?
We're not saying that we're comfortable with him. We're just saying like there's no value of like having Brian Hoyer start if Jimmy G were to go down. We would rather go with the younger quarterback, evaluate him, see how good he is, see how he looks with against starting NFL defenses with obviously Devontae Adams. Now you can really evaluate Aiden O'Connell if he goes out there because look at the pieces around him, the Josh Jacobs, the Michael Mayers, the Devontae Adams. Now you can see how good he is. And then now if you can make a decision, I know 1 year is not a long time, but if you have a talent like the Raiders have, you could properly evaluate a quarterback like Aiden O'Connell and then make a decision going into next draft. Because let's be real, next draft is a quarterback draft. And the Raiders got to think twice. They got to think a little bit hard. If they feel like, okay, Aiden O'Connell is the guy, then they don't have to spend a draft pick on a quarterback. But, that's just my opinion. I think Ray kind of agrees low-key. Aiden O'Connell, we would want him over Brian Hoyer at least to begin with.
Yeah, no, I agree. T. Severe says the message hits different when you're being coached by your peers as opposed to your coaches. Every job has those few good employees that aren't management but train the newbies. That's Hoyer and Bolden. And I agree with that. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
We talked about that with Hoyer. Yeah, we talked about that with Hoyer pretty extensively over here. It's just like he is the guy to relate with a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo to get him caught up, terminology, system, what is he seeing? Aiden O'Connell, getting him developed. Yeah. And Brian Hoyer came out in his press conference and just pretty much admitted where he's at in his career, and he's just here to help the guys. So, I don't mind Hoyer being around, just being like another assistant coach, but just relates to you on a player-by-player basis. So, no, I agree with this, T. Severe. I would agree on that. Raider Way says Queen or Chris Jones trade. He means Patrick Queen or Chris Jones.
Man, if Casey,
if you could get Chris Jones, I mean,
oh my God! But the thing is, Casey's never going to do that. Second, if they do that, they're probably going to want the next 5 first-round picks. Something crazy where it doesn't make sense for the Raiders to trade him because it's not smart.
Will they take a first for him?
Chris Jones is probably you
got to pay him. You know what I mean? You got to pay him.
You can make an argument he's the best D tackle in the NFL right now.
Yeah,
right now. So where's the value? Yeah, where's the value? Would you give him a couple of first-round picks?
Not a couple. I'm not giving him a couple.
You give him 1 first-round pick.
Yeah, because you got to pay him, and he's going to be the highest-paid defensive tackle in the league.
But that's the thing, though. I don't. Casey's not going to trade him for a first-round pick because no first-round pick is going to be Chris Jones. There's no guarantee.
Yeah,
that's why I said it's probably going to take multiple picks. Whether it's a first and a second, first and I don't know. Another first, because think about Khalil Mack. What did we get from Khalil Mack? We got a couple of first round picks, right?
Was it 2?
Yeah, we got two first round picks, and that's Khalil Mack. And I don't know if would you say Khalil Mack is as good? This is a whole different conversation. We're going off topic. We're going off topic.
Hey, for right now though, based off of the room that they have at the defensive tackle spot, obviously Chris Jones would elevate it to probably best in the league, up there with best in the league with the Eagles. But that's not really realistic for me. I would say the most realistic one would be Patrick Queen. And I think, I mean, a move like that is something that I would love for the Raiders to dive into. I would love to see Patrick Queen in
Hey,
this defense.
it's doable. It's a
It
doable
is.
move, and they
It
can do
is.
it with not giving up mortgage in the future too. Like they can actually, bring him in, but it's just a matter of like, does it make sense? Does the coaching staff want him? Do they believe in him? They feel like it's going to add to the room. I mean, obviously, we feel like it would get that room a little bit better. Like we'll feel more comfortable going into the season with Patrick McQueen in that room. But we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out because I think they do. Because do you think they're done making moves as far as like maybe another trade coming or?
Oh no, they're definitely going to make a move.
Right.
Not going to be, not saying that it's going to be like a Chris Jones or Patrick Queen type of move, but oh, Glenn, I'm so glad that you said this because I was literally going to bring this up. I'm literally glad you bring this up. Nicholas Morrow was cut, and I was watching the preseason game, and I was like, man, if Nicholas Morrow can get cut, because he was starting to flash later in the game, I was like, man, if Nicholas Morrow could get cut, he could come and fill a role in this linebacker room, and it would be great for us, former Raider. So, yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, Glenn. Another guy that I was wanting to talk about tonight, so thank you for that. Yeah, man, at this point, I'm taking him. I'm taking Queen. You make a move, I'll probably be happy about it. So
right.
We just need to get a body in there. But no, man, we're speaking about the Raiders roster. We're speaking about, the development of this team moving forward into the future. And in that, there was some controversy when we hired Josh McDaniels as a head coach for the Raiders. And he had a lot of learning that he had to do. And going back to the interview with Bussin' with the Boys, I thought it was a remarkable interview. But there was a question asked about Josh McDaniels. And if you can play that for me, I would appreciate it. Josh McDaniels was asked about his time in Denver and what he's learned. So let's play the audio and then we can react.
All right.
What now being with the Raiders, what do you feel like you've learned since your first stint with Denver as a head coach and now getting another opportunity with Vegas?
Well, you got to do it your own way. And I think when I left the first time, there was such I didn't have a lot of wisdom about how to do it other than what I had seen. And what I had seen was great, but you just can't go somewhere and just replicate that immediately. That's impossible. You know what I mean? And I was trying to do things that I had witnessed, but it just really, that doesn't necessarily fit, especially when you're 32, So I made a lot of mistakes myself and really the time that was really important for me was when I was done in Denver in 10 and then taking, the number of years that I did to kind of go back through and say, okay, this is how I handled that. This is what I would do now.
Yeah.
And just really kind of look at it and say, okay, I know what I have to do the next time if I ever get one, if I'm blessed to have a shot at it. And it's just got to be authentic and it's got to be you. And I have a different personality than Bill and, than Mike and everybody else. And so you just got to be yourself. And I've learned how to do that more. I'm much more at ease, distributing things to the guys that are around me. I have a great support staff and they handle all their stuff. The coaching staff does a great job. And I try to manage the team from the head coach position through my own spirit and, how I interact with them every day. So I'm happy with what we're trying to do. I'm at peace with it. And I know it's authentic.
When you look back, who are some
hey, there was a lot of good stuff to unpack there. And to be honest with you, say what you want about his personality. I feel like Josh McDaniels is going to start coming into his own here a little bit. I'm not saying he's going to be this great coach, but when I sit there and I hear that man speak, I hear a guy who is transparent about his mistakes, transparent that he got it wrong. He tried to be too much of the Belichick. He tried to be somebody who he's not. And regardless of how you feel about his personality, I genuinely feel that Josh McDaniels is being himself here with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, he said something in that he facilitates a lot of duties to his coaching staff. That is huge in building a well-oiled organization. When we
still
had
a play caller, though.
Still a play caller, which I'm okay with. That's where his specialty is. But what he's not doing is he's not making huge defensive decisions. Like John Gruden, when John Gruden was here, his hand was over everything: drafting, free agents, defensive coordinator, whether you're going to keep him and move on from him, key signings, how much money. Like John Gruden was the dictator of the Raiders. I like John Gruden. I like his personality, but Josh McDaniels is giving the responsibility of a coaching staff, something that the Raiders have needed for a long time now. A defensive coordinator to call his shots and be a defensive coordinator. You know, an offensive play caller who's going to focus on putting the offense in a good position, but managing the football team. You know, I've been critical of Josh. I really have. And going into year 2, we're going to really be able to take a look under the microscope at what he's going to do with the Raiders. But I can't believe I'm saying it, but I feel like he's learned a lot, and I'm kind of excited to see what his vision and what direction he takes the Raiders.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm gonna take the other side. I know you're being super positive because I was super positive when Josh McDaniels came in. He says all the right things. Him and Dave Ziegler. But my thing is at the end of the day with Josh McDaniels, he needs to show me that he could lead a winning football team, and that's it. That's all it is for me. I think he says all the right things. He says he's learned and all this type of stuff, but you know, it's for me. It's a wait and see with him. It's a wait and see for Josh McDaniels because I don't get that leader at that coaching position.
Well, he's not rah-rah.
He's not that rah-rah.
There's different types of ways to lead men. Some people that rah-rah in today's league, it doesn't fly.
Right.
You know what I mean? So what I see, though, what you're talking about leadership, look at what has come out on this roster of all of these players that talk about him. Genuinely. Like, in times past, the Brandon Marshalls, those players that played for Denver, they didn't have anything good to say. When you hear these players talk about him, whether it's Max, whether you go down the list of these guys that they've brought in and even played with them last year, they believe in Josh, you know? So even Josh Jacobs came out and said that he's the best offensive mind he's ever been around. Like, I don't know, man. I feel like, to be honest with you, like he leads in a different way, and I think that's okay. Because I think we got to look at it too positionally. The defensive coordinator is also going to be the leader of the defense. So Josh McDaniels doesn't have to be this, like, he's not the tribe leader. You know what I mean? This is broken down in multiple position groups and everything. He just has to make sure when the team is in those positions to win that they finally win, which goes back to your point. I think he needs to learn to finish football games. So I'm in full agreement with you. This year, he has got to find a way to win those games. And I think if he can find a way to do that, I think would that earn his respect in your eyes? If he can go out there and win those close games, would you feel a little bit more comfortable with Josh McDaniels?
See, the thing is, a shout out to Mo Moton. He recently interviewed Sean Salisbury, and Sean mentioned with the Raiders, he was making a point that there's a lot of what ifs. And one of the what ifs he mentioned was Josh McDaniels. You know, is he a coordinator or is he head coach of a football team? You know what I mean? Like you still kind of, you don't know. We still haven't, even after a year of him being a head coach of the Raiders, we still don't know because there's some black marks from last season. Obviously, when you go 6-10 from the year previously, we went to the playoffs. We went 6-10. I get it. New regime comes in. But at the end of the day, we still look like a completely different football team. We didn't look like a winning football team with all that talent on the football field. And it wasn't a good look. And like some of the people are mentioning 5 blown, like right away, not 5, he said 5 leads blown. Like, I mean, it's, we all know what happened. We all know what happened last year, you know, and it's not a good look, especially for a guy that's trying to prove to everybody, including himself, that he can coach a NFL football team. And I'm not 100% sold because I haven't seen it yet. You know,
and I would say for everybody too that talks about like, oh, it's running back by committee, he's never going to pay a running back. As far as player relationship, I think him and Josh Jacobs have a great relationship. I think he went outside of his boundary of what he would typically do, and I think he gave Josh Jacobs $12 million, which is completely unlike the regime that he previously came from. So the player relationship side of it is where I'm intrigued, but I agree with you. Leadership and
your audio went out. Your audio went out. But to be fair, though, you know, McDaniels has never had a player like Josh Jacobs. He's never had a player at the talent level of Josh Jacobs at the end of the day. Like, and, you know, I get it. Patriots, even if they had an opportunity, well, you know what, they had some good players at that position, but I feel like maybe Josh Jacobs was probably the best player at that position that he coached. But I hear you that he's trying new things. I know he's trying, but is what he's trying to do, is it good enough? That's the question.
I will say, outside of the class with DC, Mac, I will say this regime, not just Josh McDaniels, but this regime, Champ Kelly, Dave Ziegler, the scouting department, I think they know what they're doing. And I think that they're adding talent to a Raiders team that there is going to be a sense of depth and a sense of talent that I don't even necessarily think that we're used to. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to go out there and do crazy things, but I'm saying this scouting department and Dave Z specifically and Champ, they have a real eye for talent. And that Bussin' with the Boys podcast, they kind of get into Dave Z and his mindset and who he is as a scout and a man. But I don't know, man. I'm starting to buy into what they're doing culturally. Maybe not necessarily as like I love Josh McDaniels, because I don't love Josh McDaniels. His personality is a bit bland to me, but
But that being said,
yeah.
In other news,
the
NFL also cut other players. I know you mentioned earlier that there was a player that you liked that the Raiders can possibly pick up, and that was it a linebacker?
Linebacker Deion Jones from the Panthers, former All-Pro linebacker, and also, if you want to look at the defensive back room, Desmond King was released from the Houston Texans. So one of those longer, rangier type of guys that could kind of come into the system. But yeah, man, when I was looking around the cuts, it just wasn't anything too specific that really stood out to me that I was like, oh, we should make that move for sure. But
you know what I know. Go ahead. You about to finish?
No. I was just gonna finish up on Deion Jones. He's probably the linebacker that I would probably choose.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I wouldn't be mad if we got Deion Jones. I remember that game against the Raiders when we played him in Atlanta, where he took it all the way to the house after picking it against Derek Carr. Does he still have it in coverage? Do you feel like he could still cover at this stage of his career? What were the reasons why he got cut with the Panthers? That was kind of interesting, going from Atlanta, and obviously them picking him up. They cut him. Hopefully it was a situation where, you know what, they opted to go for the youth movement, and they had talented players at the position, and Deion Jones still has something left in the tank, and the Raiders can pick him up. I hope that's what it is, not just a matter of him just being past his prime, because then that's going to be tough for us to.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's something that this regime would really look into, to be honest, just because when you look at the guys that they even brought in, even later in training camp, these are a lot of guys that UDFA guys, late round draft pick guys. They don't look like they're. I think Patrick Graham believes that he could plug and play at the linebacker spot, that the linebacker spot isn't necessarily what it used to be in the old NFL. So I think that he thinks that he could develop talent to do what needs to be done in his system. And his primary focus is on the defensive line and his secondary.
Yeah, we'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah.
There's Raiders hopefully will be making moves, be pretty busy this next few days. But there's some things I noticed around the NFL. Rookie QBs winning backup jobs. That seems to be the thing this year. You had Sean Clifford for the Packers. He wins the backup job for them. Then you got Dorian Robinson, a guy out of UCLA, quarterback. I think T. Severe. I think that's your guy, right? That was your boy. I know you were hoping the Raiders were drafted him. He's playing pretty well for the Browns. They're pretty good. They feel pretty good about that quarterback room and him back there. And he's won the backup job. You got guys like Tyson Bagent, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He won the but is it Bagent?
No, I don't know.
It's something crazy. But yeah, he won the backup job for the Bears, another rookie QB. And then you got Aiden O'Connell. We've seen what he's doing this preseason. We know that he's the number 2 guy. It's pretty obvious. Like talent. Come on. There's no way. Raiders are probably just trying to bring in Aiden O'Connell real slowly. They don't want to put him in a weird situation in the game where he could look bad and mess up his confidence. But we know that Aiden O'Connell is the number 2 quarterback after Jimmy G. But I thought it was interesting, and the average age for the rookie QBs that are winning these backup jobs is 23.7, and then you got 3 first-round QBs. Their average age is 21, and so the backups are older and more experienced. And guess what? Not surprising, they look better.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so it's I thought it was interesting that these young QBs are winning the backup spots. And then in other news, we got, obviously we talked about Neil Farrell Jr. getting traded from from the Raiders to the Kansas City Chiefs, which is crazy. You don't really see that too often, especially a hated division rival like KC Chiefs. But that being said, that might be a sign that there might be an issue with Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Chris Jones pretty much is not going to be available possibly maybe in the beginning of the season, which, strategically speaking, is that going to affect us? What was the next game we're going to play? What's the next game we're going to play against the Chiefs?
When is it?
Yeah, when is it?
I believe it. I thought it was like later in the year, to be honest with you. He would definitely be back. Like, I think he said he's willing to hold out until week 8. I think he would definitely be back by the time we play him. I think we definitely play the Chiefs later in the year. But yeah, Chris Jones, man, he's definitely probably going to hold out, get a bag, or demand a trade. And Andy Reid had come out and said, yeah, there's no news on that front. If he's here, he's here. If not, then we'll move on. So he was pretty blatant about, the kind of situation with Chris Jones. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up playing. It'd be nice to be with the Raiders, but let's be honest, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I hopefully he holds up like the entire NFL season, man, because that dude's a monster. He's a monster. Hold up, can you see me? Hold on.
Yeah, you look froze. But SVT says on Busting with the Boys, he mentioned not staying aggressive when having the lead, and he at least has recognized his flaws. Yeah, he also said too, like last year as a team, we just he even gave the analogy of a boxer, which I love because that's the best way I can express it. I've been in boxing my entire life since I was 11 years old. Been involved in mixed martial arts. I've cornered 20 plus pro fights. So this is the analogy that I understand, and it was great. And he was saying that last year they were just point fighting. You know what I mean? They were trying to take teams to the distance and win on scorecards. And he said that this year needs to be the year that when they're ahead in a fight, that we need to go for the knockout. And I thought that was a bold statement. That was a strong statement for a guy like Josh McDaniels. And that's something that I wanted to see last year. We had the opportunity to just really put teams away, something that the Raiders have not done in a long time. And I think you've seen flashes of our ability to put points up on the board last season, but I just want to see the dagger plays. You know what I mean? I want to see the Raiders make the plays that you just, this game's done. Put it away, and hopefully Josh McDaniels can get that done with play calling this year.
Yeah, but when you have a running back like Josh Jacobs, hey, man, it's going to make it easier for you to do that and go for the kill. And because you got a guy that can carry the rock, especially against a lot of people in the box and still be productive. So hopefully we don't see that this year. We're going to see an improvement, and hopefully with a better quarterback play, because I thought that was a big issue, obviously, from last year. We won't see those types of comebacks from other teams.
Yeah, T. Severe, you nailed it on this. People confuse good leadership with motivational speaking. Those are two different things. Yeah,
no, but sometimes people have the energy of a leader. To be honest with you, if it was up to me, I like coaches that are special leaders, and you surround them with good coordinators. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. That's just me. I like that's just the type of coaches I like personally. But I can see where you can say, oh, well, it's not going to work in today's NFL. Or sometimes that, like a guy like, Jim Harbaugh, for example, where, maybe in the beginning it works. And then after a while, like it wears out a little bit, and players, they're going to stop listening and yada, yada, yada. But then you got a guy like Gruden. Like, I think he's just, as a coach, I think he's pretty good. But when he has his hands in everything, I think that's where his weakness lies.
Oh, he could have me and you want to run through the wall for the team,
man. And you could tell by the players that ran through the wall. You could tell by the teams where we didn't think they were that talented, but for somehow, some way, they were able to win some tough games.
But to be honest, his play calling was very, very predictable at times.
No, it was terrible. It was terrible. But that's what I'm saying. Like, he should be a guy that should be overseeing the team, and he has that special ability to motivate the team, but at
have
the
a
same
legit
time,
coordinator.
yeah, have a legit coordinator and you trust them to be a play caller, have a good defense, have like a good coaching staff around you instead of guys that are going to do everything that you want them to do because you want it a certain way. I don't know.
And I think people think too that Josh is like this passive weasel. But if you remember if you remember the clip of him getting after if you remember the clip of him getting after Malcolm Kuntz last season, like the guy is passionate.
Casually just say that.
That's what I thought. That's what I think when I watch
go
him.
Casually say, well, I think people just think that he's just this weasel.
Yeah, no offense, Josh, but no, I think he has that personality on the football field. I think he has that personality on the football field. Like even the small segment of you seen him getting after a guy like Malcolm Kuntz, like he just has that fire about him when it comes to the practice field that guys resonate with. And also on top of that, he's not just a yeller. The guy is a teacher. The guy can break down the game like nobody else. He can get on a board and show you where you need to be and what you need to do. And you see when guys buy into that, they tend to have some success. So, yeah, man, I'm glad that we can look at it both ways. You know,
and going back to T. Severe, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about like Mike Singletary. You know what I mean? Like a guy that just, maybe as a head coach, he probably doesn't fit. Maybe as a linebacker coach, he's probably better. But like as a head coach, motivational speaking, at the end of the day, there's more to head coaching just by being a motivational speaker. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's preferences. There's some certain coaches like the Mike Tomlins. I like Mike Tomlin has a look of a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell he has control of that locker room. I think he's one of the best head coaches in the NFL. Bill Belichick, same way. You know what I mean? He has the look of a head coach. There's also the look aspect. Do you get the look? Like, when you look at Josh McDaniels, do you look head coach or do you like a coordinator? You know what I mean?
Well, based off of my previous comments,
you called him a weasel.
Yeah, I don't want to go based off the looks. It's getting a little deep, but no, I think if he can start winning games, I think that persona completely changes.
Right.
If he wins games, then that image, you're going to be able to see him in that light of the guys who have historically won. So if Mike Tomlin went out there and lost a bunch of football games, you'd be like, wow, this guy's a really good speaker, a really good leader, but he doesn't know how to win.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick, you would say, oh, this old dude needs to get out of the league, but he knows how to win. So I think winning solves all of that. So regardless of how he looks, weasel or not, if he wins games, we'll be good. Yeah,
because the guy out in the Dolphins, we could be cracking up for the next 30 minutes about how he looks and how he doesn't even look like a head coach. But the guy that we're talking about is Mike McDaniel, head coach of the Dolphins. Doesn't have the look of a head coach, but he's getting it done. He has them playing competitive football. He's a good offensive minded coach, and they're winning. You know what I mean?
They love him.
Yeah. So hopefully, this year it's going to be a lot more winning this year compared to last year.
Rick P says, where did you get that hat with the R with the sword going through it? Redemption Brand. If you know, Raid the Tape. This is his brand. I think he collabs with, is it Digital Prez as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if one of our mods could put in the link, redemptionbrand.com. Also, you can find them on Instagram, Redemption Brand. It's a brand that's owned and created by Raid the Tape. If you know who Raid the Tape is, he's a Raider content creator. Makes good stuff, man. Definitely check him out.
Yeah. Let's see here. I don't want to argue past situations, but if you watch same players the year before and see where we were last year, there's a reason we lost 5 games after leading by 10 plus points, set a record. Hope it all changes, but I'm skeptical.
Yeah. No, hey, look, that's what I'm saying. I gotta see Josh McDaniels coach winning football consistently, and then I'll be a believer. Last year we went into the season thinking that everything was going to happen left and right, but we made too many assumptions, and we expected the coaching staff to be one of the best in the league, the best in the division, and they weren't that. So hopefully this year is going to be a change.
Yeah, T Severe, thank you. I'm glad you see it like that too. People clown Sirianni for his personality and pressers. Almost ran him out of Philly after year 2. And now look at him.
Hey, he is kind of random though. I'm not gonna lie. He's random as hell. But
Arnold says pretty good. I think Josh had more wins in his first season than Gruden. Granted, Josh McDaniels had far more talent than that initial Gruden squad. But
yeah,
I hear what you're
Gruden
saying.
blew it up. I mean, he literally blew it up. Before the first game of the season, he traded Khalil Mack, like the best player on the team. Traded Amari Cooper, also one of the best players on the team, and the rest was history. Like he blew it up. So that's definitely a way different expectations, way different circumstances, in my opinion. But that's why it's a wait and see with Josh McDaniels. Just like this Raider team, we can talk about how like, hey, we like this position group and this position group. At the end of the day, like, it's wait and see. We're not going into the season with like huge expectations compared to last year. This year is more of like, all right, we like the pieces here. Look like there might be some improvements, but we got to see what happens on Sundays.
Yeah, no, I agree. And look, before we get out of here too, I want to address it right when we got in. And I don't think that I did. It's been an hour and 20 minutes, so I kind of forget, but did a lot of talking. But I get the intro, guys. I get that Derek Carr is in the intro. You can stop coming after me. I have Digital Prez working on a brand new intro. Stop with the DC comments.
Man.
Just had to get that out.
Yeah. Ray's working on the intro, man. Just give him some time. He's working on the intro. You will not see DC on the intro.
Good night.
People
just think that I'm just fanboy holding on to it. I'm like, oh man, we're working.
It makes sense though. You know what I mean? They got to question it because they're like, hey, it's 2023, man. It's a new season.
Yeah. Everybody wants it now.
Yeah, basically. But at the end of the day, look, Ray's gonna have a brand new intro. It's gonna be fire. Hopefully we'll get it soon by the next show. But yeah, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Everybody thought you were
everybody just thinks I'm holding on, hanging on to the DC days. I'm like, come on, bro.
Yeah. They cracking up in the chat too.
Yeah, but hey, everybody, man, thank you guys for tuning in. It was a remarkable show. Can you get some Hoyer in the intro? Absolutely. We're gonna sub it out with Hoyer. No, that's never gonna happen.
And then this is gonna be the intro.
Literally that. Oh, that's good. But no, man, hey, everybody that's in the building, man, on your way out, please smash the like button if you haven't. Leave a comment on your way out. Maybe some surprise cuts. Tell us about the 53-man roster. We will engage and interact with you guys in the comments. We appreciate everybody for tuning in, man. Pharaoh, you got any closing statements before we end this?
No, man. Hey, man, we're excited, man. The season's here pretty much. The 53-man roster is set. I know I seen somewhere that I forgot to mention this, Josh Jacobs doesn't officially count on the roster until next week. So there's going to be another cut. There's going to be some, we'll talk about it in future shows, but they're going to be moving some of these players on the roster, and we'll be here to talk about it. But hey, man, the season's here. It's 2 weeks now. 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
September 10th is when they face off against the Denver Broncos.
Man, it's here, man. It's coming up quick.
Man, we're excited, man. And then once the season rolls around, hey, it's gonna be nonstop. Hey, you already know we're gonna be here every Tuesday, and I think Saturdays are gonna be our other day, and then we'll probably squeeze in something else. You know what I mean? As far as when we could go live again, but we love talking Raider football with everybody. Make sure to hit that like button. It's very much appreciated. We appreciate the support. Everybody that's in the chat. If you guys we didn't hit up some of your comments in the chat, leave a comment down below. And we definitely read all the comments. So we'll make sure to reach back out to you. And man, just make sure to hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe to Ray's channel. And hey, we switch off every week. So right this week we're on Ray's channel. Next week we're going to be on my channel. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do so. But yeah, man, we appreciate everybody coming through, man.
Perfect. All right, man. You wanna close them out with it?
Oh, we gonna close them out with it, man.
Just win, baby.